Welcome back, boys and girls, for part 2 of our life cycle of a butterfly. We talked about the first part of the life cycle, which was the egg, and then we read about the larva, and now we're going to read about when it changes into a pupa. Have you heard people refer to the butterfly's cocoon? Well, you might want to nicely tell them that they are incorrect. Did you hear me call it a cocoon? I've been calling it a cocoon. I am incorrect. A moth has a cocoon, and a butterfly has a chrysalis. Well, that makes sense because chrysalis is a much prettier name than cocoon, and butterflies are much prettier than moths, so that makes total sense. After the caterpillar has eaten all that he needs, he will crawl under a leaf and hang upside down. A silk covering will develop around the caterpillar. When in the pupa stage of life, the old body of the caterpillar shrivels, kind of dries up, away, and a new body forms. In the first few days inside the chrysalis, there is a ton of nutritious liquid that helps the butterfly begin to grow. The chrysalis will lose half of its weight because the metamorphosis takes so much energy. So while that pupa is forming, and it's changing, it's taking so much energy that the chrysalis actually becomes lighter. It becomes, it doesn't weigh as much. And you might notice if you have teenage brothers or sisters, especially if you have teenage brothers, when they are becoming teenagers, they have so much energy and they start to grow really tall and skinny, and it's just because they have so much energy. And so the pupa is kind of the same way. It's kind of like a teenage boy. Just a couple of days before coming out of the chrysalis, you will be able to see the color of the wings. The chrysalis will crack open when the adult is ready to emerge. And emerge means come out, when it's ready to come out of the chrysalis. Don't let me call it a cocoon. Ding dong. It will not be able to fly at first. It will pump blood into its wings in order to fly. I think I knew that about the chrysalis and the cocoon, but I think I forgot, and then I had to read it again to remember. That's why it's always a good thing to read things more than once, because we forget. Adult. A butterfly's tongue is called a proboscis, and you have probably heard me talk about a bee also has a proboscis. It's the bee's tongue. It's how it drinks the nectar. It will use the tongue to sip flower nectar or water from puddles, okay? And it comes right out of its mouth, and it actually almost looks like one of its legs, but it is a proboscis. Kind of pointy. Let's see. As butterflies travel from flower to flower to drink nectar, they carry pollen on their feet. What? What other insect does that? You better have guessed it right. You know I love bees. This action helps flowers pollinate or go through their own process of developing. Other flying creatures, such as bees and bats, help with pollination as well. Did you know that bats help with pollination? They help pollinate other flowers and vegetables and fruits also. This is why it is extremely important to protect these animals. If butterflies, bees, or bats become extinct, it will also damage flowering plants. Our whole ecosystem relies on the process of pollination. In order to protect butterflies, we need to preserve their natural environments and limit the usage of chemicals used in farming and gardening. I know that it's fun to catch butterflies, but do you know that they have a magic dust on their wings, kind of like a magic fairy dust? And if that dust comes off of their wings, they can't fly. It was kind of like when we had the Elf on the Shelf, even though that part of Christmas is kind of in our imagination. Remember, we said if you touch the elf, he can't fly back to the North Pole. But for reals, for a real true fact, butterflies do have that dust on their wings. And if it rubs off, they lose their ability to fly. And so if you ever catch a butterfly on your finger, make sure and just let it go. Don't try to touch its wings, okay? Interesting facts. Butterflies flap their wings 5 times per second. This is how much a second is. 1, 2. In that little short amount of time, a butterfly flaps its wings 5 times. I can't even move my arms that fast. If a butterfly's body temperature drops below 86 degrees Fahrenheit, it cannot fly. So if a butterfly gets too cold, it can't fly. So do you remember what happened to Farfalina and Marcel at the end of the book? Where did they go? They flew south for the fall and winter, right? So when the temperature started to drop and it started to get colder, they flew south, kind of like Mrs. Bennet. I like to go to Mexico in the winter when it's cold. That's what they do. A butterfly's wings are made up of tiny scales. Monarch butterflies of America migrate thousands of miles, just what I said, to warmer climates like Mexico during the fall. Butterflies taste with their feet, not their proboscis, not their tongue, their feet. That's how they taste. So it's like they have little taste buds like we have on our tongue. They have them on their feet. They are usually only able to drink liquids. The liquid is usually nectar. Remember, nectar is the juice that's inside the flowers. I loved learning about the life cycle of a butterfly. And like I said, I think there were some things that I knew already, but I had forgotten that a cocoon is what the moth hatches out of, and a chrysalis is what the butterfly hatches out of. I hope that you'll remember that. I have an activity to do next, so on our next video that's on this same slide, if you'll click on it next, we will do a little activity about the life cycle of a butterfly. See you in a minute.